Now tonight we're going to look at the power for a consecrated life, and the subject is the fullness of the Spirit. Trust this will be a blessing to you all. And we're going to read from Ephesians 5. For ye were sometimes darkness, but now are ye light in the Lord. Walk as children of light. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness and righteousness and truth, proving what is acceptable unto the Lord, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them or expose them. For it is a shame even to speak of those things which are done of them in secret. But all things that are reproved, meaning exposed, are made manifest by the light. For whatsoever doth make manifest is light. Now I want you to note these injunctions here. Wherefore he saith, Awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, literally the dead ones, and Christ shall give thee light. Now notice this wake-up call, wake up, get up, and light up. Now what does that mean? Mr. E.W. Rogers told the story of a man that he was staying with, and every morning he came down from breakfast and he said to Mr. Rogers, I haven't had a wink. One night he left the tap dripping in his bedroom. And this irritated Mr. Rogers, who was sleeping in the neighboring bedroom. So he got up and knocked on the door, but there was no response. So he went back to bed, and the tap was still dripping. He couldn't sleep, so he knocked on the door and then had the courage to open the door, and all he heard was a heavy snore. And he says, Brother, your tap's dripping. There was no reply. So he walked in and turned off the tap. The next morning, he said to his friend, How did you sleep last night? He said, Never had a wink. You know what Mr. Rogers was. He says, Brother, you're fast asleep and you don't know it. What a lesson. You know, we can be fast asleep and not know it. Awake thou that sleepest. Arise from the dead ones, for that's the meaning of the word, the dead. It's in the plural. What does this word? In my own family, there were 8 children. 4 boys slept in one bedroom. And quite frankly, I could write a book what went on in that bedroom. One of my brothers, Stanley, had to get up at 5:30 in the morning so that my dad could open up his shop, a small grocery shop, at 6:30. But he was a rascal. Dad would call him about 5:15 and he would say, I'm up, but he wasn't up. He used to take his shoes and patter them on the lino as though he was walking about in the room. And for 15 minutes, we had this agony. The voice, Stan, get up, and then the shoes pattering about, but he was still in bed. Now, can you see the brilliance of that? Awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead ones. Come out from among the world, and get among the living ones. And Christ shall give thee light. Now, the word light here is entirely different from the word light that we have read in previous verses. It's the light of radiancy. Do you remember when Moses came down from the mount after being 40 days and nights in the presence of God? The scripture says not his face shone, his skin shone. Do you know what that means? He had spiritual suntan. He had been in the presence of God. And the children of Israel couldn't look upon him. The psalmist puts it in a beautiful way. They looked unto him and were radiant, and their faces were not ashamed. In other words, he says, wake up, get up, and light up. Become radiant with the Lord. Then he moves on. See that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise. What does that mean? The devil is constantly setting traps for the people of God. If you go through some of the Psalms, especially the Psalms of David, he often speaks of the snares of the enemy, and he's still at it. And therefore, all of us must walk in the Spirit. We must walk like Christians, not as fools, but as wise. And always remember, we must keep our eyes fixed on the Lord. Walk up. Redeeming the time because the days are evil. What does that mean? Buy up. You see, the moment we're out of bed and we're radiant and we're walking in the Spirit and we're avoiding the traps of the enemy, then God will bring us into contact with those that need the gospel. And every contact is vital. That's why we should buy up every opportunity. Then he goes on. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is. Now, in the Western world, many of us find it very difficult to understand the mind of the Lord. And here's the secret. Wake up, get up, light up, walk up, buy up, and then think up, meaning we shall know the mind of the Lord. Isn't it a wonderful thing to think the thoughts of God? The wonder of it, the glory of it. Then he goes on, be not drunk with wine wherein is excess, but be filled with the Spirit. Now, as you know, there are 4 connotations to that little expression. First of all, it's in the aorist tense, and it means be filled. It's a command. It came to me in power as I was reading this morning, that when we stand before the bema, the Lord will want to know why some of us were never filled with the Spirit. It's a command. Then you will notice it's in the continuous tense. It means constantly be filled with the Spirit. So there's no ending to the filling of the Spirit. Then it's in the passive tense, and it's conditional. It really means let us be filled with the Spirit, and therefore it's our responsibility to be filled. And then the word is in the plural, and it basically means let us all be filled with the Spirit. Not just 1 or 2, but every single Christian filled with the Spirit. Now we must look at that carefully tonight. Then he goes on, speaking to yourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord, giving thanks always for all things unto God